We've had some amazing speakers today, specifically, not me, everybody else. But I would love to introduce you to Abigail. Abigail is a friend and the founder of Racia. She has this right here, PhD in anthropology, which is right alongside that tech route, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody says anthropology, technology.
It's like
together.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and she has an amazing perspective on what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to be a female founder, and
I'm a girl.
yeah, it's just a perspective I've never had in my life. So I think that she's going to really help provide a great window into what it takes to succeed in New York as a startup, and really that transition from idea through to concept. And so I do not ruin her entire speech, I will sit down and turn my mic off.
Thank you very much. Oh, and at some point, I might ask you, Carl, to grab my blue briefcase of doom that's back there.
Yeah.
So hey, I'm Abigail Edgecliff-Johnson. I'm the founder of Racia. We call ourselves a vehicle for STEM, and we are building the next generation of creative thinkers. And what that means is that we use remote control cars to teach science and engineering, which is awesome. I'm going to take you through a little bit about kind of where the idea came from, how it's progressed over time, where we are now. But I wanted to start with a text from a writer who has kind of witnessed this journey and has been a really close part of it and has a really interesting perspective on the entrepreneurial journey. So would you hit me? How to build a business, toys. This is my 9-year-old daughter, Amelia, who has watched this whole process. Now, go ahead. 1, hear an idea. 2, think. 3, research, which apparently is really boring. And then, you did. So, yawn, yawn, bored, yawn, bored. Go ahead. 4, share your idea. This is actually very much what he was talking about, right? I like this. Good, bad, so-so. Make a prototype. This is my favorite part of this thing. The first is the worst. Revise. She's not actually wrong. Find a partner. Make and share your best prototype. Go ahead. Start production. Become world famous. And that's it. That's all you have to do, and you're done. So, any questions? No. So, one of the nice things about building a business while you also have small children is that they keep you honest, and they don't hide any of their criticisms of you. But it also means that I built a business that was based around my kids. So I have 2 kids. They're now 10 and 8. And years ago, my mom friends and I were having breakfast after dropping our kids off at school, and we were talking about American Girl doll. I don't know if you are familiar with American Girl doll, but it is not just a toy. It is a juggernaut. It is a customizable doll that you can dress up to look exactly like you. So you get the same hair and the same eyes, and you wear the same clothes, and then it kills you and stuffs you in a closet and lives your life for you. It's very creepy. But it also has a retail, right? There's a retail palace, the American Girl place, where you go and you bring your doll and you share with your friends, and it's this whole inhabitable universe. And quick question, how much money do you think American Girl doll makes in a year? Throw a number. 20 million? What do you got? Anything else? 80 million. $600 million a year. Yeah. So we said, why is there no male equivalent of American Girl doll? And I went home and I thought, I know exactly what it would be, and there's no way on earth I would make it just for boys, because I am a raging angry feminist and that was not going to happen. So I sat down and I thought, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll have a retail space where kids can build, race, and hack radio control cars. So it's a customizable object, it's got a social element, it's got this way of bringing people together into a store, it's got this shareability and customization and way of bringing it kind of out into the world. So this is the Racia retail experience as I designed it with the people I paid money to design this whole shop. And the whole idea was there would be an indoor racetrack, there would be, you know, a little maker space in there, there was going to be all this room where you could watch all this stuff happen. And I had done all this research on what it was going to take to build the cars and build the store and everything. So I started researching retail. And I realized that that was the dumbest idea I ever had, because retail costs approximately $30,000 a month in rent before you have done anything else. Like, you've got no insurance on your staff, you've got no staff, you've got no product, you've got no build out, you've got no nothing. And so my big idea of a space for kids to build, race, and hack radio control cars was kind of a non-starter, right? But along the way, while I was trying to figure out how does one customize an RC car, I started hanging out in RC car chat rooms, which is as weird as it sounds, because RC car chat rooms are full of people who are not like me. They are mostly much older guys who live out in Queens, and they race these like $700 machines of doom. They are mini cars that are awesome, and they go 40 miles an hour, and they hit you in the leg, and it really, really hurts. But what these guys were doing when they were figuring out how to customize their cars was they were doing physics, and they were doing science, and they were doing chemistry, and they were doing engineering in order to make their cars do more things. And so as I'm developing this, and I'm figuring out how we're going to customize cars, and I'm figuring out how we're going to build all the retail space, I'm learning by listening to the people who are already in this community that there is a whole bunch of scientific underpinning to this, and that the car is a sort of natural delivery system for science. And the light bulb went off that if kids were going to be able to do more than just decorate a car and stick something on it, they were going to have to learn the science, which is where we came up with this whole idea that it was a vehicle for STEM, because we're so cute that way. And I'm going to show you a little video of what it looks like now, because the point of this whole long story was that we had to figure out how do you create that experience that I wanted, that customizable community experience. How do you create that in a box? So hit me. This is Racia. If we have volume, we don't have volume. There we go. Thanks. Perfect. So so what we did is we made a car where you could take parts on and off really easily. You could change little bits of it out, and you could upgrade your car in a variety of different ways to make it possible to achieve different things. And we went to playgrounds to test it first of all, right? So we took this prototype, which is a hobby car, right? So those things that the guys in Queens are racing, where we bolted on a bunch of stuff to the top to make it really easy for kids to make the modifications that we wanted them to be able to make. Because on a hobby car, if you want to take the motor out, you need to remove 7 different screws, all of different lengths, just to get at the motor. And then when you finally do get at the motor, you can't pull the pinion gear off, because I tried it, and I'm a little stronger than an 8-year-old boy, and I could not make it happen. So I was like, okay, if I can't do this, the kid can't do this. Which again, when you're thinking about your customer, if I can't do it, they're not going to be able to do it either, right? So we made some really basic modifications, these little wheel hubs, all these things to make it super easy for kids to try out the theory. Is customizing a car fun for a kid? Can they get that idea of doing multiple things to your car will actually make new things happen? And then because we had this whole science thing, and the science thing really became the driving force behind the car, does it actually work? Do kids learn any science from this whole process? So we developed a curriculum. We went into some science camps, and we worked with kids for over the course of a couple weeks with 2 different science camps, and we gave them formal kind of lessons in science and inertia and all that, and then they would go out with the car. And the feedback that we got from the teachers was, oh my God, this works so well, and the kids get it, and they get not just this is a thing I'm playing with over here, but they get that when they're playing with friction on the car over here, it directly relates to friction on a real car in the real world, or when something is sticking on a door, or when they need more torque to actually get more power to open something up. They were able to make those connections. So we did the research, built the prototype, tested the prototype with a bunch of kids. We also, when we took it to playgrounds are like Lord of the Flies level painful, because if you take a toy to a playground in New York City, you had better be prepared to share it, right? So you take it and it's just, you walk away. And they will do all of the things with it, including take your very expensive prototype off the top of the slide and drive it right off the side so it slams down at 10 feet. And they go, oh, but it broke. You're like, duh, of course it did. But it makes you think that's what kids are going to do when they get this car. So the car needs to be robust. The other thing is kids would say, what else can it do? And okay, you'd say, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to try driving it up the slide. I want to try driving it through the sand pit. I want to try this. And so the next idea was, okay, how do we get kids to do these scientific experiments? We give them a choose your own adventure booklet. So it's play with the car. Then it's, all right, what do you want to do? Do you want to drag something? Do you want to jump something? Do you want to pull something? Do you want to add things onto it, right? So that the booklet is that, what else does it do? So again, from the kids, we got, it has to be robust. From the kids, we got, it needs to be playful first, and it needs to offer up all of these other options. And from my own kids, because again, they're my test market, I got, by watching them and watching their friends play, that this had to be pre-assembled. Because when you watch kids play with toys that are very complex building toys, you recognize that they really appeal to the parents, but kids get bored easily. They stop playing with them, and then they just sit in a closet somewhere, and it's not a very satisfying play experience, right? So again, like watching the customers engaging with your base, watching the sorts of things that they are currently given, how are they interacting with the things they're currently given, and why is your thing going to be better? What problem is it going to solve, as you were talking about earlier? So we did all that research, and that was great, and this is this big ugly monster. And I went to a design firm, and I said, okay, I've done the research, I know my customers, let's build the car. And we talked about, all of the concepts of it and the theory of it and the, deep meaning of it, and we came up with this beautiful modular little machine where you can, whoops, go back, thanks, where you can take all the parts off and you can, slide all these little doodahs out and fix things up, and it's very cute and it's really fun, and the kids hated it. And they hated it because what they loved about this one is that it looks like it's okay to break it. It looks like it's okay to drive it off the top of the slide. It looks like it's okay to try and take something off and put something new on and kind of get your hands in there and mess with it. That one is too perfect, and it's too shiny, and it's too clean, and they were like, okay. And there wasn't anywhere you could take that, right? So a whole part of this was this customization idea, right? Make it your own. They couldn't make that their own. It was too done. So they didn't get it, and they didn't like it. And so we had to go back to the drawing board. And if you would hand me the suitcase of doom, I'll show you the new one, which is still a prototype. Thank you so much. And I carry this around so I can look like an assassin in New York, but a very stylish one. Although actually New Yorkers all know that just photographers carry these things. So this is our newest prototype. And what's fun about it is that it takes a lot of these elements, this kind of like hacked together mess, but it actually has simplified a lot of the manufacturing pieces, right? There's not a million different parts on the front. There's just a few parts on the front. We've made the whole design a lot more open, a lot more friendly. We've added in features like an expandable wheelbase, which the kids, for some reason, it blows their minds when they see that. And I'm like, it's a fairly simple thing, but they love it. And seeing them get excited about that was like, okay, when we're jettisoning, product ideas because they're too expensive or too complicated, that one we're keeping. Because that's the one the kids are like, whoa, okay, that's really cool. The other thing is we added in this ability to change the gear ratio really easily, because we had done a similar sort of, like a bike gear. We called it a wedding cake. So if you imagine two wedding cakes sort of opposite to each other, the way a bike gear would be, and there was a belt around the middle, and when the engine went, we discovered the phrase, if it's not burning, you're not learning, because it would smoke when it went too fast. which is not the best feature in a children's toy. I'm just going to put that out there. When you're designing, think about that. So we came up with this other way to change the gear ratio, which is a removable box that comes off, right? Obviously, we will be putting a clear plastic cover over this because you could get your hair in there, you could get your fingers in there, you could get your brother's fingers in there when you're mad at him. So there are things like that that we have to think about. But as we're prototyping, it's a constant evolution of the idea. It's a constant rethinking of how are we serving our customers best, how are we serving their needs, and how are we getting them excited, right? So the other thing is, because you can take this off, you can put a power takeoff on here. This becomes, if you're familiar with tractors, a power takeoff basically allows you to use the engine power for other things, or the motor power for other things. So we're helping kids develop their own accessories to go on here. And we did some events where kids came up to us and we said, well, what would you use that for? And one kid said, a bubble blower. Oh yeah, cool. Another kid said, you could do projectiles, like sort of whirligig projectiles. Another kid said, you could make a vacuum. I was like, oh my God, you could make a vacuum, you're totally right. So again, you talk to your customers and you get ideas for products that may end up being impossible, but you want to open it up so they can give you that feedback and give you those ideas. Would you hit me there? Thanks. So, these are our kind of basic concepts that drive where we are, which is that scientists are constantly sort of racing to discovery, right? So that's what we want our kids to be doing, is challenging themselves, challenging each other, pushing the boundaries forward. And that all play is learning, so that the foundation of our company is not the science teaching, it's science playing. And that through play is where kids are going to be most excited, where they're going to learn the most, where they're going to share the most. And they have to keep evolving in order to keep up. Would you hit me one more time, baby? And this is the other thing. So remember, we started with this whole idea of this community, right? I wanted this to be this big social toy. So how can I build a big social toy without a big social space? Big social space online. So it's an online community where kids can share with each other. They can show each other, like, oh, I did this horrible, disastrous thing. Isn't this awesome? And somebody else says, I did this thing and it worked and it was great. And so when they're designing a vacuum cleaner for the back, they share it with each other. When they discover a really cool science video on friction, or really that's what I do, we put those up on there. So we're constantly talking to our community, working with our community, building a community around this. So again, it's not just, and again, as a parent, there's a one and done toy where you buy it, like a Sphero, sorry guys, for, $200, and the kids are really excited about it and they love it and they buy it and they play with it and then they never touch it again, because there's no reason for them ever to touch it again. The community gives the kids reasons to touch it again. They give it, more life, new life, and helps propel them and us forward. So just to take you through that journey, you come up with a crazy idea, say, this is the thing, it's going to be the store, and you're going to spend money pursuing that thing. And then you're going to go, yeah, no, and you have to go and you pivot, right? You've heard the term pivot. So you pivot to, it's still the same central core of the idea, but executed slightly differently. And then as you do the testing and you meet with your people and you say, okay, I got it, this is the thing, we know what we're doing, we're going to build it and it's going to be beautiful and the kids are going to love it, and then the kids hate it. So you pivot again, and then you test it again, and you figure out that you need to test it more cheaply each time, because you can waste a lot of money. Here is the phrase that my advisor tells me all the time, is that when someone is willing to help you with your company for money, that's a business transaction. They are not helping you. It is a business transaction. You should treat it as such. So people would say, oh, I can help you develop your product. And what they meant was hire me to develop your product. So they're not doing you a favor. Treat it like a business transaction, negotiate them down, and figure out a cheaper way to do it. But yeah, that's us, that's Racia, and my last word of wisdom to you would be to say yes. So we've had a series of opportunities that have come to us because people have offered us something insane and we have not been ready, and we've said yes anyway. So the best experience of that was when we got a call from Good Morning America, and they said, we're doing a story on girls' STEM toys. Can we put your car in just the promo? You won't be on the main thing, we'll put you in the promo. And I was like, sure, yeah, okay, we can do that. Then they saw the car and they talked to us some more, and they called us back and they said, actually, we've decided that we want you on the main program. Do you have 4 cars that we can drive around on the set while the producers, while the presenters are talking? And I was like, Yes, we definitely have 4 cars that totally work, and it's going to be fine. Absolutely, we can do that. But you say yes, and you do it anyway, and you're on Good Morning America, and you make your daughter drive the cars around because she knows how to build a business. And you get a lot of traction out of that, right? So the key takeaway there is just say yes to random stuff. And although, as you were saying, sometimes your investors are going to try and get you to do things you don't want to do that are not right for the business. If it's right for the business but you're not ready, do it anyway. That's it. Thank you. What do you got?
Well, first, I really appreciate you taking us all the way through. I felt like I was watching a movie. The drama, the tension, it's great.
You missed the parts where I cried.
Yeah. No, but just really seeing the way that you had to transition pretty dramatically throughout to make it work was really exciting and interesting. I'm just curious about the actual product. Like, is this a toy that you are imagining is sold at the store?
Everywhere.
Okay. Or is it like a teaching tool that schools have, or all of these things?
So originally it was always an at-home toy. And I had a kind of vague notion in the background that there would be kind of an educational component because we had built this curriculum anyway. I had spoken to a couple of people who were interested. We just went to a couple of fairs. We did World's Fair and then we did Maker Fair. And at both of those fairs, there were so many teachers that came to us and said, please, 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 can we use this in our classroom? And please, 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 can we develop this with you? That we're actually going to add in an open source curriculum component. So we've got that online community, which is about kids sharing their experiences. So we're just going to make the same community for teachers so that they can help build that community together. So we're actually doing a teacher hack day where they can help us develop new ideas. Because again, teachers came up to me and they said, oh, I could teach this and this and this and this. And I was like, yeah, okay, I did not think of that, but yes, you could. So again, coming from interfacing with the customers, we are going to do that. And it's where we launch will be a function of how quickly we can go into production for one versus the other. So the teacher production toy will not need to be as mass market as the sales toy because we can do, 10 schools initially, and we can do that. I don't know how many of you know anything about hardware and manufacturing, but there's soft tooling. So there's 3D printing, and then there's soft tooling, and then there's hard tooling. Soft tooling is like a silicon mold, which produces poured ABS plastic, which is the nice hard stuff you're used to playing with. But an aluminum mold or a steel mold is like literally gouged out of metal, and then they pour the plastic in. Those molds cost a lot of money. Silicone molds cost very little money. So you would do a soft tool first because if you're going to make changes. So anyway, the whole point of that is to say that we would, for the production cars for teachers, we can do smaller runs to test things out, see what the best fits are, and then move into mass tooling, which costs $40,000, $50,000 a tool.
It's like another prototyping.
Precisely. Yeah, it's like low level. It's like short run production, late run prototyping. Yeah. Yeah.
How much have you spent on this project, and have you gotten your return back on this project, and how long has it took for you to get that?
Sure. Spent monetarily versus emotionally is two different things. It's that's something that nobody really talks about is the cost. So there are hidden costs too, right? I've got 2 kids, so the cost of having somebody care for my children while I do this and don't earn any money, right? You got to figure in the cost of childcare or the cost of you're going to be doing it once they're in bed, which slows things down. Financially, sort of hard numbers wise, we've spent a little over $100,000 getting to this point, and that's been over 3 years. And it started with the costs have been in prototyping. They have been in not really in marketing, but in a little bit of web development. Very little. You try and do that as lean as possible because if you are not a technical founder, if you are not the one actually doing the coding, when you finally do bring on a technical founder, they're going to throw out everything that all of your consultants have done because they're going to hate it because they just do. So you don't want to spend a lot of money building some perfect, amazing custom thing that somebody's just going to go, oh no, that's wrong. So a little bit of money on that. So, a lot of money has gone on graphic design actually. Not as much as the prototyping, but the graphic design has been a big part of it. We've evolved the logo over time. My partner wants to evolve it again. because apparently he doesn't like rainbows. Fine. I don't care. So I'm like, fine, if you want to do it, knock yourself out. But don't spend any money on it. But yeah, the bulk of our money has gone to prototyping itself and physically buying, 27 servos and 32 motors and those kind of hard costs. Yeah, and that's kind of where it is. And that totally off topic, but a friend of mine challenged me the other day because I was saying that one of the things that you're doing in a startup is you're basically trying to convince people to work for you for nothing. And that I feel like it creates this system where there are certain people who have the financial resources to work for nothing, which means that they can take a lot of risks on a lot of startups, and if one hits, they do great, which perpetuates this wealth gap, right? Where you've got a couple people who already had a nice safety net who can then afford to take these big jumps, and then that safety net becomes bigger, right? And I said, well, as a startup, I don't have money to pay people. And she said, that's bullshit. You do pay people. You're not hiring them, but you're paying people. So as part of my kind of entrepreneurial journey, it has been to be more thoughtful about the people that I work with, to make sure that I'm not consistently, I am surrounded by a lot of straight white guys in my network. And so when I say I need something, I get a lot of recommendations of straight white guys in my network. So I have to make the conscious choice to say, you know what, I have to go outside my network, even for things like graphic design and web design and where I buy my prototypes, because you are going to spend money on your startup, even though you think, well, I'm not hiring anybody, I'm not spending any money. So just this is my preaching to the choir, when you go out and you're spending money, be thoughtful about where you're spending it, because it matters. Those dollars are going to matter. And that's something that I've had to learn as well, because I was unconsciously doing it. I was unconsciously always just taking the first people that came in, because you're so excited that someone wants to work with you. But again, it's a business transaction. They're working with you for money. Be thoughtful about where your money goes.
Have you ever considered bartering with different professionals?
Bartering? Yeah. Yep. I, in my spare time, build robotic cakes. So the guy that does my financial models is getting a very fabulous cake for his girlfriend. She rappels down the sides of buildings for a living, so we're building a cake that allows her to rappel down the side of a cake, as you do. So yes, we do that. And because I'm an anthropologist and what I'm really good at is understanding customer experience, I trade customer experience consulting for, yeah. Sometimes you can find people to do that with, and sometimes you can't.
So I think right now, technology is growing so rapidly. So a lot of the kids that I know, they'd rather play Lego on an iPad instead of getting the actual physical toy. Mm-hmm. So do you think that might be a challenge?
Kids are evolving very quickly, that is true, but I also think parents are having a really strong backlash against all screens all the time. And so in the community that I am in terms of all the parents that we're around, there's a real need for physical play toys in addition to the tech toys. So I think you have to understand that the tech toys will always exist and be part of it, but that a kid is not, many parents don't want their kids just sitting in front of a screen all day, even if that's what they'd rather do. As parents, they still have the power to turn it off and take it away and say, no, you're going to play with this. And I think you can also look at the market trends, right, in terms of the enduring power of Lego. The toys that have the growing market share are craft toys and STEM toys. So the real active play, physical, get in there and mess with things. So yes, tech toys are a problem, but there's also the market trends that show you that it's not going away. Toys aren't going away. It's an $86 billion business worldwide. Physical play toys.
John, one more question.
Have you decided how much to charge, or what was the process to decide per unit cost?
So that is predominantly a function of what's called the BOM, which is the bill of materials. So every screw that you put into your piece has a cost, right? So every single piece of plastic on this, every single screw, every shock, every wheel has a cost. So your whole goal is to try and bring that cost down as low as possible, bring that BOM cost down as low as possible. And then stores ask for a 3x multiple. So if your manufacturing cost is $25, they want to sell it for $75 to $100. So that's what determines the price. So we are currently aiming for that $100 range, but we're not sure we're going to make it. And we certainly won't make it initially, right? That's why toys at specialty retail are much more expensive than toys at mass market retail, because when you talk to a manufacturer, the cost of 5,000 units, the individual cost per item is significantly higher than the cost for 25,000 units per item. So going mass allows you to bring the cost down. But there are a lot of challenges because everybody along the retail chain needs a chunk. So that's why those margins are so high.
That also varies between different kinds of startups. So in restaurants, you're going to have, that's going to be more like a 1.5x. In unless it's pizza, in which case it's an 8x. If you're
That's a very specific number to have at your fingertips.
I owned a restaurant for 3 years. If you're looking at small consumer goods, so small injectable plastic goods, you're looking at a 7x multiple to bond. Electronics, 3 to 4x, and then if you're looking at video, media, or games, you tend to want to have it be around 40 to 50x.
Which is why the investment numbers are so different, right? In terms of what people will invest in your business, because they want to know how much money they're going to get based on how much they put in. So that software 40, 50x means that they're getting much, much higher investments right away because the potential is so much bigger.
But that could also be part of the individual too, right? Because I drive my market. Like, I'm an architect. When somebody wants to hire me, you go to a typical architect. Let's say he's charging $3.50 a square foot.
Yes.
I come in and I said, I want it $10. And then they'll argue with me, but I tell them this is what I can bring to you. This person don't have.
So
That's your value proposition.
Yeah, that's your unique selling proposition.
No, but I said,
Right.
that's how I do my business.
Yeah.
Because you said this is X for the restaurant business. But if I'm going to a Peter Luger's, they'll make the price.
Yeah, that is your unique selling proposition and what your brand brings to the table. Where you look at, if you look at say Grey Goose versus Absolute, Grey Goose, the reason why they charge the price they do is because that's what's driving their market. They didn't have a market until they increased the height of their bottle by 2 times and tripled the price. That's what's driving their market. It's the idea of conspicuous consumption. It's the idea of you go to Peter Luger's that you can be seen going to Peter Luger's. You go to Starbucks so you can be seen carrying a Starbucks cup. It's the idea that
I just thought you went there to pee.
that's also Crate Barrel as well.
Yes.
And so it's the idea of conspicuous consumption. If you look at it from the perspective of what would you pay to be seen doing something, that's the kind of thing that enables you to apply that now 14x, 100x, 500x, whatever
Right.
the multiple is. But in real terms, to survive, those are the multiples we generally shoot for.
And they're going to be dependent on your customers, right? Your customers are going to be willing to pay. That's classic market is, right, because a parent is going to be willing to pay a different amount of money for a STEM toy than they are for just a regular RC car or a board game, right? So you need to understand who your customer is. And there are things like, does your customer use an iPhone or do they use an Android? Those are very different people. And understanding that means you have to understand what kind of money they're willing to pay for things. So when you understand your customer, that is part of the pricing.
So like in a business like Lacia, you're gonna hire both engineers and designers. Like, is that true? Like, how do you make them to communicate their ideas and come up with like a complete concept like into reality? And then how do you find the problem in people in different fields?
Yeah, so they have to be able to communicate with each other, and they are doing slightly different things. And your engineer will tell you that they have to drive all of the decisions because they're the ones who are working in the CAD and making it all perfect. And your industrial and designer engineer will tell you that they have to be the ones driving the product and making all the decisions. You as the entrepreneur need to be able to say, okay, these are the mechanical specs that I know are going to be vital, and these are the industrial design specs that I know are going to be vital. And it's your job to bring them together and kind of force them to work together, but you shouldn't be forced, right? You open the lines of communication, you set up a kind of pathway for, okay, we're going to make this decision that moves you forward, and we're going to make this decision that moves you forward, now go. And so you find people that can work together. The thing that I've found is working with people in really small chunks. Give them a small, specific task to do, rather than like, I am going to hire you to be my CFO because we just met at a party and you're great. You know, you hire them to do one thing, and if that one thing goes well, then you hire them to do another little thing. And if that little thing goes well, and then you build from there. So that's how you find the right people. And I speak as someone who has found some of the wrong people and had to fire them. So it does happen, right? You'll get people and you're like, oh my God, you're so exciting, you're so amazing, and we're going to be great, and you suck. Why is this not working? And you'll figure it out. But it's a lot to do with chemistry, particularly at a small company very early on, since nobody knows what's happening and what's going on. They need to be comfortable with change, and they need to be comfortable with uncertainty. They need to be comfortable with you going, I know that's what we were going to do, but now we're going to do this. And they have to be like, all right.
And with that,
Thanks, guys.